My name's Randi Rubenstein, and welcome to the Mastermind Parenting Podcast. At Mastermind Parenting, we're on a mission to support strong-willed kids and the families that love them. Hi, everyone. I am here with Kirby. Kirby, you're like Madonna. You just go by Kirby.
Apparently I do, yeah.
I know.
That is, yeah. That's how I go right now. Yeah.
But I like it. You know what one of my clients said? Because of course, when I start going down rabbit holes and there's somebody that I'm learning from, I share it with many people. And one of my clients who I've been sharing a lot of your videos with, she's like, I like that he goes by Kirby. I kind of feel like he's my friend.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a strange name growing up with, like, for sure. That's a strange name. And it was before the Nintendo thing happened. So
yeah.
I was like, well, anyway, please continue.
Yes. Okay. Let me tell you guys a little bit about Kirby. Kirby is the creator of the Two Mind Method, a practical, heart-centered approach to healing attachment wounds and reshaping nervous system patterns. Two of my favorite topics lately. Drawing on years of deep personal research, lived experience, and work with clients, Kirby specializes in helping people build healthier relationships with themselves and others. His work is grounded, accessible, and refreshingly real. That's why I reached out to him. Most people who come on the podcast reach out to me, but I solicited Kirby. I wanted him to come on my podcast. Relationships with themselves and others. His work is grounded, accessible, and refreshingly real, offering tools that truly work in the messiness of real life. Kirby brings a unique blend of neurophysiology, trauma awareness, and emotional attunement to the table, empowering people to transform their inner world and their closest connections. Thank you for being here. And thank you for all of the videos that I've been watching on YouTube.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you, YouTube algorithm, for all of a sudden having you show up in my feed so that I could learn from you, because you have really been teaching me a lot.
Wow. Thank you. I like hearing that.
Yeah. It's been
It's really a passion project. I mean, it's just like, this is something I've been working on for years. And I mean, in my own, to figure out my own self. And then as I figured things out, I started talking to others. They like it. And then eventually I just said, oh, let's just shoot videos and see what happens. And here we are.
Yeah. In your videos, you just were saying, like, I said, we're just going to have an organic conversation. And you said, that's how I do all my videos.
Yep. That's it. I don't plan or script anything. I mean, I'll start a video and I'll have the topic. And topic is usually 5 or 6 words. And then I'm just like, okay, let's see what's in there. Let's see what erupts. And I love the process. I'm a big fan of being very real, very raw. But if you want to jump into it right away, one of the reasons for that is because I believe a lot of attachment wounds come from a pressure to be performative, to perform as expected. And kind of, this is the way that I'm kind of like living the answer to attachment wounds, is to just be like, I'm not trying to perform. I'm not trying to impress anybody. It's just like, be as real as possible. Yeah. So.
Well, I think that's why I reached out to you, because I can, from watching your videos, like I recognized your breadth of knowledge. Like
Thank you.
I can tell that, there's a lot of people that teach a lot of things, and, it's like pop psychologists on social media, or, and they went to school for a long time and they got PhDs and maybe they've worked with clients. But that's different than living what you're teaching to me. Like, you can understand things conceptually. And when I reach out, you're like, just so you know, I'm not blah, 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 blah. This is my own experience. And I said, me too. Like, this is my own experience. I have, mastermind parenting and what I teach and all the concepts that, that I share with people. And then when I coach parents, like, yes, I've gone through different trainings and I've learned a lot of things, but usually what I tell all my clients is I'm like 2 steps ahead of you. Like I'm teaching what has helped me, and I'm sharing it, but I don't have all the answers. Like, I love when you're like, I'm just some guy on the internet, like,
True story. Take what's valuable, leave what's not. And it doesn't need to be a big drama. Like, if someone's sitting there saying something you don't agree with, it's just like, okay, I don't agree with that. That doesn't work for me right now. It might work for you tomorrow, like surprisingly, but yeah, just take what's valuable and leave what's not.
You know, the reason I reached out to you is because I do everything, unfortunately, in a non-linear way.
Mm-hmm.
That's just been part of, my path, my healing, my figuring myself out, my creating the family that I always secretly wished that I had had. And now
Mm-hmm.
I'm at a place where I've done it.
Mm-hmm.
Like anything else, yeah, I achieve in my life. I have to keep reminding myself because I still sometimes have those you know those thoughts in my mind that limit me, but I have to
Mm-hmm.
remember, like, anything else that comes is gravy. like
Mm-hmm.
like I've done it. I honestly can say that I've done it. I have beautiful relationships with my three young adult kids and a healthy marriage, and
Mm-hmm.
so everything else is just like extra.
Yeah.
um right, and so that feels really good to come from that place, which is helping other parents. And it's not, I don't have all the answers. I know what
Mm-hmm.
I've lived. I know what resource I couldn't find when I was in a situation that felt similar to you.
Mm-hmm.
So let's put our heads together and see if we can figure this out. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, there was one point several years ago, I was kind of getting started and I was at some weekend, I don't know, thing, gathering of people, leading a bunch of people at dinner. And people are asking me kind of about what I'm doing. I'm like, and then there's this question going around the table. It's like, what's your goal in all this? And then it came to me and there's a bunch of people at the end of the table asking, I'm just like, what is my goal? And I'm just like my goal is to make sure another one of me is never created.
Mm.
And it's not that my parents were horrible. I mean, there's definitely, there's scales or whatever, but it's like, I know the journey that I went through and how many times it felt helpless and
Mm.
it felt hopeless, really. And it's just like lack of skills, lack of knowledge, and across the board, it's not just in me, but in like all the attachment figures around me. Lack of skill, lack of knowledge. And it's just like, okay, that's solvable. I come from engineering, right? I was a software developer and engineering and stuff. And then I come over to this and I'm just like, oh, well, figure out what the parameters are, find a pathway that is works more than half the time, and then iterate, try, fail, iterate, try, fail, improve. Do that many times. And then you end up having a system that makes a lot of sense and then helps people reliably. So that's where I am.
Well, what I was also going to say is like, because I don't do anything in a linear way, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I just have come to, like, uncovering all of the parts about myself, like learning about attachment, and
Mm-hmm.
and I'm really working with a therapist now that she's doing this really cool thing called brain mapping. Have you heard of that?
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. I don't have much experience with it yet, but it sounds promising. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting, where she's really helping me to, like, tap into feelings. And I don't know, I've had some sensations and some things that have happened. I think it's from when I was in the crib.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't, it's just it's been a very interesting process to kind of um you know feel things that it was never safe to feel,
Yeah.
including sadness. Like,
Yep.
and so, like, I kind of feel like I've done everything out of order. I'm like, it would have been good to know what my attachment style was when I started having kids, or at least when they were little. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's also part of my mission now, is that because I'm learning this so late, and it to me, it just is helping me make so much sense of my own story. And now I can see it in my clients, I can see it in other people, right? So when
Yes.
someone's and I want you to really kind of, because I feel like the way you describe attachment, and when there is, I don't know if you use the term insecure attachment, but when you don't
Mm-hmm.
have
Mm-hmm.
that secure attachment, you know, what that looks like in your life, what it looks like in your behavior, I think it just helps us to make so much sense of, oh, that's why I do this thing. That's why I feel this way. This is why maybe my partner, behaves in this way, or my kids.
Right. Right.
Like, it's so helpful to like have that knowledge base. So I really wanted you to come on and teach us a
Okay.
master class.
Oh, okay, okay. So yeah, attachment theory, like, well, there's the stuff we see everyone's seeing on the internet, the pop psychology approach, which is like, dismissive avoidant, anxious preoccupied, disorganized, fearful avoidant. That's kind of on the insecure spectrum. And then there's the secure side, but that's only one model. There's other models that have different measuring things. There's one that's called DMM that has this like circle, and a bunch of where you plot on the circle depends a couple of things. One of the things that happened with me, partly in figuring myself out, but also then doing field work and helping with more people, I began to move away from that a lot. I mean, I still use the terms because that is what helps communication happen. But inside my mind, it's different. And the way I see it is that a good way to think about this is the attachment system is the master index of threat and safety. And so if you think about like an encyclopedia and you've got that book at the end, I mean, who uses an encyclopedia anymore? But anyway, whatever, you go to this book at the end and you say, look up alligators, and it says alligators, crocodiles or reptiles or whatever, right? You've got this index that basically says everything experience that comes into my nervous system is going to have some rating between threat and safety. And the attachment system is kind of that, right? So close ties to the amygdala and stuff. But going back, a lot of people think it's like, oh, I have an attachment style. And it's like, yes, you've got a label that says attachment style, but like, let's look at what that means. And so let's think about like, we've got this spectrum of behavior, and on the spectrum of behavior, we have like, there's these behaviors over here that are kind of like showing a lot of fear, anxiety. And so we're going to say that these kind of behaviors are clustered as like anxious behaviors. Then there's these ones over here where like we're going to say avoidant, which means you move away from the stimulus, you move away from the situation, or directly you move away from the emotions associated with the situation, right? And so we've got these avoidant behaviors over here, we have anxious behaviors over here, right? Anxious will be reaching out, clinging, trying to grab something from the outside world to come help me feel better. The avoidant one is like, get me away from the outside world, let me go inward. Okay, so now we've got the spectrum. Now you pick any situation, like a door slamming, something simple like a door slamming. And then you say, what happens if you're in a room watching a movie and somebody slams the door very hard? Most people will startle, but some people will startle and their entire nervous system will become inflamed. And there'll be this like very hot fear response, trembling of the fingers, dilating of the pupils, like maybe their stomach gets upset or whatever. And then you're like, okay, you have some kind of prior association between the door slamming and threat, right? And so now what happens? What's your behavioral response? Do you sit there and freeze? Do you pull away from it? Okay, that's going to be kind of more over here on the avoidance side. Or is it like you reach for someone and be like, come tell me that this is okay? What just happened? Honey, what just happened? Like, and you're immediately reaching for the outside. That's going to be more on the anxious side, right? So we can take any given stimulus that happens in our life and we can kind of see where it plots on this
What if you
behavior
get
spectrum.
angry? What if, like, with
Oh,
my husband's like a very loud sneezer,
mm-hmm.
and I call it ear assault. And
Oh,
so,
oh, yeah, yeah,
so he does the super loud sneezes, and I'm like, he's like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I mean, we make
right.
a joke of it, but like my go to, if someone were to slam a door and startle me, I'd be like, what the
Mm-hmm.
I would get I get annoyed, I get a little angry. Like, that's my natural. I don't really do that much anymore, but my
Mm-hmm.
natural go to, or younger me go to, would be
Mm-hmm.
anger, annoyance, blame.
Yep.
Yeah, like that.
Okay. Well, anger is kind of a whole topic, and We can jump there if you want.
I mean,
I
I didn't
like
mean
my
to interrupt you. I just
No,
wanted
no,
to,
no.
yeah.
We can come back to that one. Like, because I'm very happy with my assessment on anger at this point, and I'm happy to share it because this is what I think happens. There's a lot of people that hypothesize that anger is they call it a secondary emotion. It covers sadness and fear. It's like take sadness and fear and
That's what
mix
I've
them up in the
learned.
blender,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then it's like okay. And this is one of the reasons why they hypothesize that men who are depressed are more likely to express it as anger because the expression of sadness and fear is so culturally, forbidden or shunned or whatever. Okay, so if we take this idea that anger is a cover story for sadness and fear, and every time I have explored that, it has been true. So if there's a case where that's not true, I haven't found it yet. Okay, so this is what I think happens. The subconscious will be looking at the situation and say, if I sink into sadness in reaction to the sneezing, what happens? Sadness is your nervous system deactivates, you turn inward, you start conserving metabolic resources, and it's in action. You don't, right? Fear is retreating. You leave the situation, you move away from it, whatever. The way I think it works is the subconscious says, in this particular situation, I don't like it, but if I engage in sadness, it's going to stay the same, and I'm just going to sink into hopelessness. And if I engage in fear, I'm just going to run away from it. The situation will not change. So the way I look at this is that anger is a jolt of energy that comes from deep within because it believes that you can change the situation. Anger is a fueling of the nervous system and the energy so that you have the resources you need to take your power, put it out into the world, and change the situation. So if we test this, what we see is that the person who rages out and all the anger management issues, which I had in my past, they rage out and they do all this crazy stuff. At some point in time, they're going to take irreversible action on their environment. And then it's just like now, whatever that thing is, the sneezing, the slamming door, whatever, it's gone. And then anger related to that eliminates. But the person who does not take any action and does not influence the external world, and that stimulus keeps happening, anger keeps cycling up. And you have the anger just arises again, arises again, arises again, arises again. So you either have to remove yourself from the situation or you have to change the situation. Does that make sense? I hope so. Yeah.
So you're saying the knee-jerk reaction of being annoyed or getting a little angry, it's actually energy that is going somewhere versus holding it in until you become like the tea kettle that just eventually erupts in an even bigger way. If you're just holding it in, eventually it's going to come out.
Kind of. I mean, that's a common analogy, which a lot of people will take stuff. Anyway, they'll take a common analogy and they'll kind of like expand it out. I'm talking about something slightly different, which is like, think about it that I have a 5-year-old that lives inside me, and the 5-year-old says, I want this situation to be different, right? And then he basically grabs the shock paddles from the paramedic unit and jolts my nervous system. So now I'm fueled, like my energy level in my nervous system is up to a 10. And he says, now take this energy I've just given you and change the damn situation. And then you're like, okay. And now if you change the situation, he will be happy and will be like, okay, that's fine. He'll reevaluate. Maybe he doesn't like the new one. And so it happens again. But if you change the situation, he's now satisfied. But if you don't change the situation, he's going to keep jolting you. Boop, 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 boop. And then if he jolts you enough times and your higher brain suppresses the impulse, well, now he's angry at two things. I don't like the sneezing, and I don't like the fact that you're not listening to me. And I don't like the fact that you keep suppressing my impulse. That's the way I see it.
So the
that's
anger,
the tea.
so that's the
Yeah.
anger intensifies. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah, that's interesting that like you're letting it out, but I think I'm understanding that it's like the 5-year-old who is letting it out, like the inner 5-year-old that's letting it out, um, it feels like you're doing something. At least you're doing
Yes.
something about it.
Right.
It seems like that's maybe why like people who tend to be explosive, like you wonder like how like this person, like there's a lot of the time where they're not explosive and they seem so
Yes.
with it and on the level, like how in their own mind are they justifying, and maybe you could answer this since you used to be
Mm,
explosive, like
yeah.
is this the reason that that explosive person who is not always that version of themselves, how they can kind of allow the explosiveness to continue to happen because
Mm,
it feels like they're doing something?
mm. So call my system the 2 mind method. And the reason for that is that it's like looking at a person as a single entity or single human or single mind, I think is a
Mm-hmm.
total fallacy.
Mm-hmm.
We have a portion of our brain that's like, we call it the conscious, rational, whatever mind, that, it's good at forward thinking, reasoning, cause and effect relationships, concepts, language. And then we've got the other mind, which is down underneath, and that's the seat of the emotions and everything else. And so as someone who used to be explosive, the way that works is I I'm trying to be hyper vigilant about my state, because if that thing that is anger starts percolating up, it will hijack my entire system, and the part of my brain that has any control will be put to sleep. And that's exactly how it works physiologically. If you flood the brain with enough adrenaline and cortisol, the higher brain functions will literally be deactivated. There's this thing called like chloromiderides or something that
Mm-hmm.
goes into the prefrontal cortex and actually inhibits neurological transmission, something like that. And so the higher brain functions are literally put to sleep when we're in a stress response. And so the anger is arising up from underneath. The subconscious has every tool it needs to turn off your higher brain functions, and will be like, boop, 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 push those buttons. You are now fully hijacked. You have no control. The inner 5-year-old will lash out, be explosive, set your life on fire. And then once adequate change has been implemented, it will calm back down.
Mm.
And then the conscious mind will come back online, and you'll look around and you'll be like, I hate myself.
Did you like I had a mom tell me not too long ago that after she really healed this part of herself.
Mm-hmm.
Um but forever when but you know, and this happens a lot of times, you know, once people really trust you and they really don't feel judged, it's like, well, this is what's really happening behind my curtains. And
Yeah.
and she said when she would have these explosive episodes where things got, and it wasn't just her that was volatile, they were all kind of being
Mm-hmm.
volatile in the household.
Right.
She said it's so weird. I like it's like I know it happened, but I can't remember the specifics or the details. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. That's the other thing that happens when you flood the brain with adrenaline and cortisol, is it goes to the hippocampus, which is the part that's responsible for kind of changing working memory into deeper memory, and it alters the way the memory is stored.
Mm.
And so I meet people all the time, like all the time, that cannot remember their childhood at all. Like their
Yeah.
first memory is like at 14,
Same.
15, 16. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, to me, that is a clear indicator of prolonged trauma response.
Mm.
It's just like trauma to me is a memory issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I know a lot of people, I love Bessel van der Kolk and the idea the body keeps score. I'm adjacent to that, but to me, it's like trauma. No, it's not trauma. A stressful event, an event of adequate stressfulness, will alter the way memories are stored. And when memories get stored differently, the lower brain, the child brain, the subconscious, has a memory system that we can call the procedural memory system or implicit. There's a couple different names for it. But that memory system is tracking all this information constantly. But the memory system that our conscious mind has access to, which is they call the narrative system, that memory system is impaired during moments of heightened stress. And so after the event, your body, subconscious, remembers it just fine and all the horrible things that happened or stressful, whatever. But our narrative system now has these voids. We have these blackout periods. And all the time, it's like, in fact, like of there's kind of 4 common experiences that I list as like, if you're not sure if you're having a trauma response, you look for these things. And it's like super angry, super terrified, super confused, right? Brain fog, loss of memory, or super euphoric. And it's like, those are all, in my world, those are indicators that your body is responding to a trauma memory. And that's a key one. Like, you go through this big rage episode, sure. And then afterwards, you struggle to remember what the details, or you have a fight with your partner and you struggle to remember the details. Clear sign that a trauma memory just got accessed. It triggered the system. It flooded your system with all the stress hormones. And now as it calms back down, you're coming back to your normal regulated self. And now you're just like, you've got holes in your memory. You've got like your system will be super amped. Yeah. So
That's
those
so
are things I look.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, going back to the attachment piece, can you explain a little bit more about, you know, these different classifications for insecure attachment?
Mm-hmm.
I think I interrupted you when you were really giving us the master class.
Yeah.
Um, so let's go back
A
to that.
little tangent on anger.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I was going at there is that we've got the spectrum. We have a stimulus that comes in the spectrum. It could be a slamming door. It could be a loud sneeze. It could be someone lifting an arm, lifting a hand, threatening some kind of physical action, or, or my partner standing at the door with a backpack looking like they're about to leave, right? And any of these things can be stimulus that can come into the system. And now the stimulus comes into the system, and then we react. And how do we react to it? And it's less like, oh, I might be, no, don't go, tell me what's wrong, and let's figure all this out right now. And the other person is just like, oh, you're leaving. And it's just like, and then they have this burst of anxiety that arises inside them, and then it gets shut down, and they say, I'm not going to be vulnerable to this situation, and they bail. And so we've got behaviors that will be anxious, and we've got behaviors that will be kind of avoidant. And in any given stimulus, you're going to have a behavioral response that's somewhere on that spectrum. And so people that most of their behavioral responses to common stressors are on the anxious side, we're going to basically give them a label of an anxious attachment style. And people that are on the avoidant side, we're going to give them an avoidant. But what happens when you have someone who's like, well, in these 2 stressors, I'm over here on this side, and on that stress, I'm right in the middle, and this stress, I've got 26 stresses over here on the anxious side, but then I got 12 that are in the secure pool. It's like, how do we label that? And that was me. When I first took the attachment style test, I was 3% secure, like 35, 37% anxious, 33% dismissive, or and then the rest was FA. So it's basically evenly spread across the 3 insecure styles. And then I'm sitting there with this program that says, oh, if you're insecure, if you're anxious, take this program. If you're dismissive, take that program, whatever. I'm like, which one do I take? Right? And I see people all the time that this is the way they kind of manifest, is they've taken an online test, and then they come back and they say, oh, I'm anxious, or I'm avoidant, or whatever. Key thing to know here that blew my mind when I read the book that I love so much, which is
What book is that?
It's called Attachment Disturbances in Adults, Treatment for Comprehensive Repair, by Daniel P. Brown and Mike Elliott. In my experience, that's been the best book I've ever read on attachment. It's a monster, though. It's like 780 pages or something. But one of the things it talks about in there is it covers the entire last 50 years of attachment research, and it has a whole section on online assessment, which is, you go to some website, you take 50 questions, and it gives you an attachment style. They did several studies have looked at the associations here, and the mapping, where it's 9% accurate. So if you take an online test and it says you're secure, there's a 9% chance that's actually true. Mm-hmm. And if it says you're anxious, it's a 9% chance that's actually true, because those are not Online test is unable to assess for your actual attachment style and your subconscious belief patterns. What it's good at is it's catching your current state of mind. And so in your current state of mind, in your current state of nervous system regulation, thinking about one particular relationship or whatever, in that moment, you are showing predominantly secure thought patterns, behavior patterns, whatever, right? But it's not an assessment of your attachment style across the board most of the time, right? So the statistical association is pretty low. And, but it's still, I mean, it's interesting and it's fun and all that kind of stuff, but it's, you know, I don't want to be sitting here being like, all this stuff is useless. It's not. What I'm trying to get at is that when I was focused on the labels and the attachment styles, I made less progress. I started making a lot more progress with myself and with others when I let go of all the labels and I say, where are your fears? What situation do you have a reaction to that looks like a physiological threat response? Are your fingers shaking? Are your pupils dilating? Do you get that shortness of breath? That to me is where the magic is. And you can find that with any person in any situation. You can say, what is it you're so damn afraid of? And they'll be like, you know, and they'll say, well, I'm afraid of abandonment. I'm like, that's a concept. What's the specific situation that is terrifying? And they're like, well, most people will struggle to get there, but that's why we have coaches and stuff. But they'll eventually get to a point where they say, I'm terrified of being in a place where I'm alone, where I walk into the house or apartment or whatever, and I'm alone. Okay, that happens all the time. What's so scary about that? And they're like, because if I'm standing in this house alone, it means that I'm not worthy. I'm not lovable. I'm not attractive. Like, people don't like me. I don't have social value, right? And you're like, okay, now we're bumping into what the actual fear is. And once we understand what the fear is, then we can begin a process of kind of dissolving that fear with some techniques.
But
But
if you like drilled that down, do you think
mm-hmm,
it's helpful? Like when we talk about attachment, you know, I mean, I know for me, it helps me in my own understanding
mm-hmm,
and healing process to know, oh, this was born at a very different time.
oh yeah,
And like just to make sense of my own story and putting the puzzle pieces together. And I think it can feel really scary for people to do that because it's like honor thy mother and thy father, and it feels like you're blaming. It's like every
mm-hmm,
parent's worst fear is, oh, my kids are going to end up on a therapist's couch one day,
mm-hmm,
and and they're going to blame all their problems on me. And
mm-hmm,
so, you know, I think if you know, you have relationships with your parents and you love your parents, and if your parents weren't monsters and they fed you and they took care of you, and in
mm-hmm,
my case they even paid for college, and like they
mm-hmm.
did in summer camp, like you know, like I had good parents. So it I think it can be really hard to even be willing to look at that, because there's something about it for people that it feels disloyal in some way, you know?
Shameful.
Yeah.
It evokes a shame response often.
Hmm.
Yeah, shame and guilt very often. And it's like, sure, yeah, that happens. I mean, I went through it. So many people I know have gone through it. But it's like, what's at stake here? Like, what's really at stake? And is the stake my future mental health, which will then enable me to have healthy relationships, which will then enable me to raise children in a healthy way? If that's what's at stake, then so be it, at least in my world. Because for me, like, again, I come from engineering, so we have to have a key goal that we're evaluating our project against. And the key goal that I evaluate everything against is, will this course of action likely prevent attachment wounds in the next generation of children? And that's
Hmm.
the thing I evaluate everything against. And if it's the difference between preventing an attachment wound in a future child versus feeling guilty about my parents or upsetting them or damaging their ego or whatever, then I choose one instead of the other. And, but, you know, not to say I'm heartless or anything, it's there's a way of looking at this where we can avoid all that, because it's just like human psychology works in reliable ways. No parent is perfect. And if the parent was not is underskilled or uneducated about attachment dynamics, they're going to make mistakes. Sure, right? It's just like, and so the way I see it is like, just start with the assumption that like there's going to be attachment disruptions. So like, don't try to design a perfect system where there's no attachment disruptions. Try to design what they call an anti-fragile system, which is every attachment disruption turns into something that is actually strengthening both systems and the relationship in general. And so instead of being like, I'm going to try to be a parent that never creates attachment wounds in my child, no, I'm going to be a parent that recognizes an attachment disruption as quickly as possible, and then I have the skills to repair it as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody will benefit, because if I develop that skill, it works with my child, it works with my partner, it works with my family, it works with myself. And then we just need boundaries, because we're going to run into people where my behavior will trigger them in difficult ways, because they're going to feel like their ego is being challenged or whatever else. And I'm just going to be like, I'm, sorry. We're doing my best. That's my opinion anyway.
Well, you don't, I mean, also, this is your own work to do. If you become good with boundaries, why do you even need to tell your parents you're doing this work?
Yeah, you don't really like. I'm a big fan of something called IPF, which is Ideal Parent Figure Protocol. It's this whole set of meditations. I just released them on my YouTube channel.
Oh,
Again,
yes, where I was on a walk and I did one of them where you walked us through going back in time, and
yes,
it's like my kindergarten classroom came up, and
kindergarten
and
classroom,
and I was
beautiful.
looking to the left and to the right and to the left and to the right, and it was unbelievable how it worked. I loved that meditation.
Thank you. Yeah, and then you
Mhm.
bring in an ideal parent, an
Mhm.
idealized version of the parent that you have the worst relationship with, and then this is one of the feedbacks I get from people. It's like, I feel like I'm betraying my parents. I'm just like, sorry,
Why did they need to
yes,
even know? They don't even need to
right,
know.
right.
Right.
That
Like,
to me says that your parents have ingrained within you
mhm.
a yes, thought patterns, basically a weaponized guilt, weaponized shame.
Well, that
Like
you,
parents, yeah,
yeah, that you, they made you feel responsible for their emotions. And I
yes,
mean, I say that mastermind parenting, number one truth, kids are not responsible for adult emotions.
nope,
Period.
nope,
End of story.
period,
And
end of
so,
story.
so that to me, like, if it feels so disloyal and they don't, this is your own work, it's too
Yep,
disloyal to even think it. I mean, yeah, like nobody needs to know that. And
right,
also, like, if you know you have a parent that you have a relationship with and they don't have the capacity to really know you at this level, um
yes,
like, like, okay. I
that's totally
mean,
okay.
yeah.
They the thing where I was going with that is that once I really started getting into the IPF protocol on my own journey, like I started developing a relationship with this idealized father.
Mm.
And it was like, it was very strange at first. That was warned. It takes a while where you just got to discipline your way through it, kind of like you do with yoga or going to the gym. And then eventually it starts paying off. And once it started paying off, I'm like, oh, this is really nice. And then my entire attachment space across the board began shifting more and more towards secure. Why? Because I had an internal sense of safety inside myself that I was building by reestablishing these attachment mappings. Okay, then what happens after that is I'm able to go back to my relationship with my real father, and I'm now able to be more present, more patient, more aware, more whatever, right? It's just like, because I'm no longer in this situation with my actual father trying to get anything from him. Like, I'm not here to get your validation or approval or whatever else, because I've got it over there from my idealized parent.
I've
I
already
have
given it.
used
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I've used a psychological hack to trick myself into a place of felt safety and security with an idealized parent. And that means I could be present with you and recognize that you are a wounded child. And you're doing all the things that a wounded child does. And now as he moves on in his later stages of life, it's just like, I got to be like, I can be here with you and be more present and patient, right? Now, that's, in my opinion, that's one of the things that happens when you really engage with this stuff deeply, is you're taking accountability for your own healing process so that your fears are no longer dominating your system. You feel safe, deeply, abidingly safe across a wider spectrum of human experiences, which means you have now way, way more capacity to what? To like face stress, to engage with people, to be fearless, to be super vulnerable, to hold, be patient and hold space longer and whatever else. And it's just like, to me, I've never seen anything like it that is as effective at improving your life across multiple domains as these approaches, which is rewrite the attachment system with IPF and then fear rectification, dissolving, whatever. It's basically exposure therapy. It's just kind of regressive exposure therapy. That's what I do on the other side. And so it's like these two things, and then the middle, you find meaning and purpose. And those three approaches, cornerstones, are very, very effective at helping someone basically establish a new life. And that person with a new life will be less likely, far, far less likely to create an attachment wound in the next generation of children, in my opinion.
Or if you've already, I think there's some people that are like, well, what if I've already accidentally, I mean, you gave
Then
an
you're
example.
modeling.
Yeah. You gave an example in one of your videos, like, it was something, and I would love for you to share it if you can
Okay,
remember it.
sure.
But it was like, how does the child, how the child who has a parent that has been, there and attuned, but then all of a sudden they're on their phone, their faces in their screen,
Oh,
like we've all been
right,
there, right? And
right.
and they walk away from that child. Like, I would love for you to explain like what the child perceives that behavior to mean and what they sort of internalize after that.
Okay. So I know the one you're talking about, and this is kind of like my just general explanation of the original attachment wound, right? And it is like so we'll go back a bit, right? Because in my world, attachment theory begins in the womb, right? In the womb, I'm held, I'm fed, I'm warm, like I'm basically every physiological trait stimulus that we have associated with safety and survival is being given to us in the womb. Okay, now I'm birthed out into the world and all that's taken away. And now I have this cacophony of chaos coming into my nervous system, and my little child brain has to figure out what's important, what's not, how do I survive? All of this is terrifying because the unknown is always terrifying. And then eventually, hopefully, that child comes into contact with the heartbeat of the mother, and that's the same heartbeat they heard through the previous 9 months. And so they're like, oh, this is safety, because the way the human brain works is if two things happen at the same place at the same time, it draws a line between them and says these are connected. So it says, while I'm being held, fed, nurtured, safe, warm, there's this boom, 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 boom. So as soon as I hear the boom, 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 my brain draws the connection back to all these traits of safety. Okay, so now I'm establishing, like my threat safety index is establishing this heartbeat, and the whole organism wrapped around this heartbeat is safe. That's mom, right? And that becomes the initial attachment figure. Now, eventually, the father shows up and many other people that can kind of form an attachment constellation, and all these people are safe, right? So, but there's the baby mind is still sitting there being like, how the hell, what's important, right? And there will be these moments when there will be this feeling that arises of discomfort that will arise inside the body, right? It could be gas, it could be a medical ailment, it could be anything, right? But there's
Hunger.
this hunger, right? There's this feeling arising inside my body that does not feel good, and I don't know what it is, right? And so that nervous system is saying, I'm freaking out. I don't know what this is. Person, thing, whatever, that is the source of my safety that I'm literally co-regulated with, and limbic resonance probably, which is mom. It's like, mom, please come help me. I'm facing this unknown thing. Please come tell me it's going to be okay. Like, make it go away. Because in the past, when she comes and holds me or whatever and feeds me, whatever else, that feeling goes away. So the baby begins to fidget and cry out and says, hey, wow, what? Because that worked in the past. Well, then mom comes around the corner. She's on her cell phone. It's some big work meeting, or there's a fight with her partner, or maybe she's got a substance problem, whatever it is. She's not emotionally available in that moment, and she turns away. She prioritizes something else. And then in that moment, the child brain says, oh, something else is more important than I am. Boom, attachment wound. Like, I can, and maybe, likely, that brain might conclude, oh, when I cry out, people, the source of my safety will leave me. That down the road will very likely turn into an avoidant attachment style. The way I see it is that the core craving, I see it as like, we've got a gastrointestinal system, we've got a nervous system, we've got all these different kind of systems inside the body. This concept of an attachment system doesn't really have an organ attached to it, so it's kind of hard to like pick it out. It seems to be more of a brain, a conceptual brain. It's probably a wide-spanning neural network, whatever. But the attachment system, the way I see it, we come out of the womb, we have one instinctive craving for three experiences melded into one, which is, I want to feel the experience of being wanted, of being chosen,
This is
and
what
of
I was
being
going to ask you.
prioritized.
Perfect. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to feel the amalgamation of wanted, chosen, and prioritized. And so that is the core attachment craving, because if I'm not wanted, chosen, and prioritized, I'm going to die, right? I'm going to be left alone on the plains of the Serengeti and be eaten by a leopard, right? So this is a core instinctive evolutionary craving. I want to feel wanted, chosen, and prioritized by someone important. And when you look at almost all attachment problems as an adult within the romantic relationships, it always boils down to this. It always boils down to, like, I don't feel wanted, I don't feel chosen, I don't feel prioritized. Okay, so that's the core attachment craving. And then this same book I talked about earlier, the research of Dr. Daniel P. Brown, he presents this idea that there's kind of like 5 key experiences that will usually generate this feeling of wanted, chosen, and prioritized. And the key experiences are, these are what I call the 5 pillars of attachment: felt safety, attunement, support while dysregulated, expressed delight, and support for autonomy. And it seems to be that if you can give a child these 5 experiences in adequate measure, they will emerge from the attachment window, which is 24 to 36 months. They will emerge from the attachment window with a secure attachment style, which in my book is the greatest gift you can give another human being, because it literally benefits every aspect of their life from there forward. So this is the 5 pillars of attachment. I've got videos posting on that in the next 5 days. But I mean, this is integrated into everything I talk about going backwards. But yeah, like the 5 pillars of attachment are it. And this is how you create a secure attachment style. But it's even more miraculous, almost like the universe designed it this way. Because when I get skilled at providing these 5 experiences to another human being, like a child, it turns out that same skill I can use with my romantic partner. And then I can use that same skill with my relationship with my own inner child. And so I've got these 3 main relationships in my life, and the same skill set of the 5 pillars of attachment are very applicable and very positive. They show very positive results with all 3 relationships. And so I worked on becoming an expert at the 5 pillars of attachment, and all of my relationships improved. Every relationship moved towards healthiness. relationships that were not healthy fell off naturally. Um, Definitely my relationship with self improved. And it's just like, oh, this is the key thing. A key thing. Yeah. So,
So those five pillars, I keep thinking about, there's a famous line for those of us who watched a gazillion seasons of Grey's Anatomy,
oh,
which
yeah.
is,
Yeah.
yeah. And so there's a famous line where Meredith says, it's like this love affair, and she wants him to choose her, but he's like, I think they're having an affair at the beginning of their relationship
Mm-hmm.
and he's still married or something. And she says, choose me, pick me, love me. And
Yep.
she that whole show was about her attachment wound.
Yep.
Right, she had, her parents got divorced, her
Most
dad was
shows
an
are.
alcoholic, her
Yep.
mom was, was very focused on her career,
Yep.
and she was so, like, and it is a show about how she became a mom and created the family that she never had and healed her own attachment wound. I think created secure attachment by really becoming a very different mother and having different relationships with her kids than she ever experienced. Like, that's the thing. And I know you don't have kids, right?
Nope.
I mean, that
No.
is the thing
Unable.
that I want to say to people is, number one, there's many of us who come into adulthood with insecure attachment. And just like Kirby, just like myself, you can create and heal that insecure attachment and create secure attachment for yourself by, all the things
100%.
that I
Yep.
also think it's incredibly healing. Like, if it didn't happen, or you didn't, cover the five things, um, the five pillars with your own kids, but by 24 or 36 months, just like we can heal this in ourselves, you can also create secure attachment with your kid. Like, it's not too late
Nope.
to repair. And
Nope.
so I want to put that out there for anyone who's like, oh shit, I think I've done it wrong, or maybe
Oh,
it's
no,
too
no, no.
late. Like,
Yeah.
that's not the
Everything
case.
is everything is flexible. Neuroplasticity is amazing. Um, yeah, there's almost nothing that can't be healed from. Yeah, sure. Like physiological, like physical trauma to the brain is even that sometimes. But like most of the things that people think of as like one-way doors in psychology, I don't know. It's just there seems to be enough evidence that things can change. It's just that, like, it's efficacy. I mean, again, from the engineering side, it's like, how effective is this approach? And if that approach is not effective, then use a different one. But when it comes to attachment, it's very well researched, and it's very, very predictable, and it's very the pathway to healing is very well known. And that's one of the things I do with people in one-on-one sessions, and why I'm posting all the videos and everything else. But it's like, there are things that block it. That's actually healing is healing is equally the skill of letting go of what you think you know as it is adopting something new. Because
Hmm.
if you are holding on to, if you're gripping shame, like there are mothers out there like mine where self shame and self blame is like a virtue. And so there's people that hold on to shame and they hold on to blame, and it's like, okay, you got to let that go before you can move. There's other people that will like hold on to a victim card, and they're like, oh, this horrible thing happened to me, and until they can put the victim card down, it's very, very difficult to get movement. Entitlement. I just did a whole series on like the enemies of healing, and it's like, it's shame, blame, numbing, and self delusion. And entitlement, of
The
course,
numbing
is,
one was good. I shared that with
yeah,
several people. Yeah.
yeah. Numbing is a key indicator, and it's so many things are numbing, right? Watching Netflix,
Yeah.
making cookies, whatever, shooting
Big number
podcasts,
over
right?
here.
Like making videos,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
right?
Like
Like,
overworking, even when it's
yep,
like there, it's like, and then you live in a society that, like, it gives you pats on the back for a lot of
yep,
the ways that you numb that are productive, overworking,
yep.
being, I, yeah, I my go-to was numbing, and is numbing, not like victimhood. It's interesting, like when people come with the victim card,
Yep.
I think I've gotten better, but it's sort of yeah, it's like not my go-to strategy, and it's
Yeah.
sometimes even hard for me to understand.
Yep.
I think I've gotten better with it, but like it's just like, the story fondlers, where it's just like the same story and there's never resolution, and sometimes the characters change, but it's just like the same. And these are
Yep.
like people in your personal life. It's like the same story and the same story and the same story, and it's like and a lot of times these are people that I've known that have been going to therapy every single week for years and years
Yep.
and years, and I'm thinking, how is their therapist not how's their
Yes.
therapist continuing to take money from them when nothing is changing?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I agree. I agree with that. I
yeah.
mean, there's a lot of great therapists out there, and I'm not really actually sure what their angle is. I mean, I know that they've got some very serious limitations about what they can do, say, suggest, and that's one of the reasons why coaches are kind of have become their whole separate industry. Is because the coach can make demands, the coach can like plant ideas and all that kind of stuff, but a therapist can't. And so, in some ways, they're kind of handcuffed. But I totally agree with you, and it's like to me, and again, this is just the opinion of some random guy on the internet, but it's just like if you're not seeing meaningful progress in 6 months, that modality is not working.
Yeah.
And it's like time to try something different.
Hmm.
And but if you're engaging in talk therapy or whatever the modality is, and the main purpose of it is to just vent your pain, vitriol, whatever, then a lot of people will find that very satisfying, and they're going to
Hmm.
keep doing it, right? Because it turns out their goal is not actually healing or change or anything else. Their goal is to like validate their kind of their well, it's emotional validation, and that's important. But it's like if there's no resolution, if there's no change, then well, I don't know. Is that your goal? I guess I don't want to
I mean,
shame
it
or
might be, look, it might
yeah,
be a person, that never felt heard. It was not, no one
yep,
was listening, and they never got to feel like their voice was heard and it mattered. And maybe it does take years of being in a space where someone is, it's a safe space to let it out and let it out
right,
and let it out some more. Yeah, I mean, it's not for me to judge. I
yep,
guess I'm just
same,
like,
same,
yeah, at some point I'm like, really? And that shit's expensive. It's like $250 an hour. And,
yep,
but maybe it's worth $250 an hour to feel heard. I don't know. I
yeah,
love I get a lot of people, I help a lot of people get into therapy, and I have many people who are therapists in my programs,
mm-hmm.
who come to me. I have many listeners who are psychologists and therapists. My daughter is about to go to grad school to become a therapist. Like
Oh, great, 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 yeah,
I I am a big proponent of therapy. My kids go to therapy. Like I am a big
mm-hmm.
proponent of therapy. I'm like the opposite of the, oh God, I hope my kids don't end up on a couch blaming me. I'm
Yeah,
like, I hope my kids have the worthiness to go to therapy and do all this self-exploration.
right,
Right?
right.
Like I hope.
Well, it's
But
like, I
yeah.
mean, this is important because for a lot of people, they think of a positive relationship, they think that the marker of a positive relationship is that there isn't difficulty. And hopefully your listeners aren't in that camp, but there's still many people that still believe that. And it's like, no, how good you feel in a relationship is not a marker of how good the relationship is. The positive marker of a relationship is what happens in the worst moments.
Hmm.
And in the worst moments are the things that happen help direct that relationship towards repair and reconciliation. And so in this particular case, it's like, okay, we're talking earlier about you being a mother and being unprepared or whatever. And it's like, sure, humans are imperfect, mothers are imperfect, sure, things happen. Now, what happens next? Those kids find the confidence, the courage, the vulnerability to go deep inside to understand where the wounds actually are, get a little bit of help to understand them, and then loop back around and say, hey, mom, let's have a conversation. And then they initiate the repair process. That is actually super green flag material. That's what we want.
Mm-hmm.
That's not like, we don't want a situation where every child feels the pressure to be like, oh, I can't ever blame mom. It's like, no, figure out what the issue is and then initiate the repair process. And then your relationship will deepen, improve, become vulnerable. Every marker
People are
of
so scared of
positively
that.
relating.
People are
Totally, totally.
people are so scared. I've had so many people say their biggest fear is that decisions they're making today are going to come back to haunt them and their kids are going to end up blaming them for all their problems.
Mm-hmm.
And when I really drill it down, I'm like, do you think you're doing it perfectly right now? Like, is
Yeah,
that it? And they always say no. And I'm like,
yeah,
so let's play that out. Like, what does it look
yeah.
like? And like my daughter saying to me, remember that camp you sent me to that time? I was homesick the whole time. It was the worst month of my life. That girl stole my letter. She bullied me. She made fun of, you writing me all those letters to try and, help me get over my
Right.
homesick. All your love letters. She totally used them and bullied me. It was a miserable month. And I'm like, well, that was a terrible decision to send you to that camp. And she's like,
Mm,
yeah, it was I'm like, I know. What was I thinking? You don't like I don't even know whose advice I was taking, but yeah, that wasn't and you really weren't in love with summer camp. So to just like take a risk and send you that camp, that was a terrible decision. And then it
mm.
sucked. And she's
Yep,
like, "Yeah, it
yep,
sucked." And like that was the conversation.
yep. Beautiful. So beautiful.
Why are we so scared of having that conversation? Which was, that was what was I even thinking? That was a terrible decision. Yeah, that was a terrible. That month really sucked for you. Yeah, it did suck. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I run into people not that often, but often enough to stick out of my mind that I run into people where it's just like their parents and they're just say, there's no way I could admit fault or that I made a mistake. And it's like, and I'm like, okay, good luck with that. Right? Good luck with the consequences that that attitude or fear will have in your life. Because if that's happening with your child, it's probably also happening with your spouse. It's probably also happening with your boss and everything else. And then what you realize there is that there's this whole big interactive, interconnected piece of behavioral responses and emotional responses that are basically, I'm trying to avoid ever taking blame for wrongness. I don't
Yeah,
ever want to be in a situation. Yeah.
because there
Yeah.
was so much shame. There's so much shame, and it probably wasn't safe to make a mistake. It was the opposite
Yep.
of growth mind. It was fixed mindset growing up. And I
Yep.
mean, it's like when I give that example, I'm like, could you handle a conversation like that? Like, how many different ways could it go? Like, maybe your kid's like, what were you thinking? And you're like, what was I thinking? Like,
Yeah.
why is that so hard? I mean, admitting, think about someone else that you feel did you wrong, and you let them know, and then they're like, I'm so sorry for that. You're 100% right. Like, are
Yep.
you still going to torture them and hold on to it and beat a dead horse? Or is that going to be like a pattern disruption? You're like, oh, well, thank
Right.
you for owning that.
Right.
It's totally different, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. There's a huge power that comes from becoming okay with being wrong, making
Hmm.
mistakes. Tremendous power and freedom comes into a person's life when you're just like, I am doing my best in every moment, and I'm gonna screw up sometimes. And then when you screw up, you're just like, oh, there's one of those times. You're like, okay. And then you look around the people and you're just like, okay, did this action hurt you? I want to take accountability for it. I want to like initiate repair, like tell you what I was thinking in the moment and thinking, feeling, whatever, that kind of like help put put me in the mindset where I made that choice. And sometimes the partner's just like, I totally get it. Oh, now I understand. That really did hurt. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And then you can just, all this goodwill happens. But then there's other people where it's just like, no, you hurt me. You wronged me. That's the victim card again. And it's like, and then they won't let that lie. Well, that's red flag of epic proportions. And there's very, say, low survivability of that relationship, right?
Yeah.
Something I say often is like, that person just told you everything you need to know about the future of that relationship. And sometimes it's hard and it hurts. But again, I'm like, if you're thinking about the entire future of your mental health and the how the impact of your mental health is going to impact others, especially your children, then it's just like, we need to be very vigilant right now in the here and now about what we accept and what we don't. And if we have a person that's going to hold my feet to the flames and bring pain and misery about some mistake I made 3 years ago or whatever, it's just like, I need to have some hard discussions with myself about why am I still here? That's my opinion anyway. I'm reiterating that I'm evaluating everything against the attachment wounds of children, either coming or already in my life. And I see so many parents that are they're just like gripping onto relationships that cause them stress and misery and just angst to the end of the time. And they will not let go of a romantic relationship. And then it impacts their nervous system, which has a direct one-to-one correlation about their ability to be present with their children. You know, of course, you know this, the number one indicator of a child's well-being, you know this, right? The
Yeah.
quality of a mother's happiness. So it's like everything we do should, like, and this isn't just like your kids, this is society in general. Like, if we can focus on building the infrastructure that prioritizes the quality of a mother's happiness above almost everything else, we are preventing crime. We're helping create better electorate. We're helping increase education. We, like, every aspect of what we care about in society will be improved when we can help mothers raise secure children, in
And
my opinion.
I think honestly, and from my own experience, and I see this with people all the time, when you start to really do, your home is moving and grooving, and people come and you've never met my child, you've never met a child, like, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
right? And then within a couple of months, things are so much better. And there's, like, I had a mom who's just been in my initial program maybe for 6 weeks or something, and she had it was just a fractured relationship, and he was so shut down. And she just shared the other night, she said, he called me back into his room, and she said he just needed more snuggles, and he wanted to give me one more kiss, and he said, I just need one more kiss because you're the best mom in the whole world. and
Aww.
and this is a kid, this she was like, honestly, like, I don't, like, I take care of him, but like, I don't really have a relationship with him. We don't enjoy each other. I mean, that's 6 weeks ago, and now we have a little boy who's feeling enjoyed and calling his
Yes,
mom back. He's feeling
yes,
chosen and prioritized, right? And
yes,
loved.
yes.
And I said, well, that was your report card. And,
Right.
and I think
Beautiful.
what I've started to see is that when you really start to do things in a way where your family is in such a better place, you feel proud of, like, when you put your head down at night, you feel proud of the mom you were that day.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
especially when people get to the teenage years, because most of us remember elements of the teenage years. And when you're
Right.
going through hard things with your teenager, because they're going through how hard it is to be a teenager in this day and age,
Yeah, yeah.
and they confide in you, and you're their soft place to land, and you're showing up for them in a way that you never had an adult show up for you. There is something so cathartic and healing, um, that I feel like it's like, not only are we creating secure attachment, we're also healing our own insecure attachment by showing up and being that for the next
Yes,
generation of kids.
yes. Yeah, totally. I mean, whoa, what's her name? I can't remember her name now, but she's a champion of this idea that like somewhere along the way we began to prioritize this idea that like being out of the home, having your own job, whatever, like it's like the idea that priorities other than motherhood were more important, right? And she's kind of this idea where she's out there championing this idea that it's like let's bring the concept back that motherhood is a phenomenal job, and it's one of the most important jobs that there is, really. I mean, who cares what the TPS reports say? Who cares how much profit the corporate makes in the next quarter? We're talking about like
shaping human beings.
Yeah, shaping a human being that's going to last for the next 60 years, of all the people they touch, all the activities they engage in, their own sense of happiness, satisfaction, joy, whatever, right? And all of that goodness is going to spread into all the people they touch. It's like we're literally, when we shape the nervous system of a human being, we are literally shaping our culture and shaping humanity as a whole. That to me is far more important than whatever status report is coming in from work. I don't know. Yeah, anyway.
I love it. Well, that's a great note to end on.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a great note to end on. And yeah, I think this was a fantastic conversation, masterclass, all the things. And I mean, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave people with, or?
No, my brain's a little bit. I've talked about most of the things I really care about, right? But I mean, it's just like all my thoughts are on the YouTube channel, and so it's just go there if you want to hear more, because there'll be lots.
Well, we're going to share everything, all your links in the show notes. And I mean, I really appreciate all of the videos that you're putting out. Yeah,
thank you so much.
Fantastic.
This is my report card.
Yeah.
This is my report card, getting it from someone like you to say this has been meaningful and impactful for you. That's like, I'm so joyful right now. So thank you so much.
Good. Okay. Well, thanks for talking to me today. And thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening today, guys. I hope you picked up some tips, tools, maybe some baby steps for creating more balance and boundaries in your life. And I just wanted to let you know, if you want to continue moving the needle forward in creating this for yourself, having a happier household, I want you to go to my website and check out mastermindparenting.com. We have 3 beginning programs, and if you need some accountability and more support, then please look for the one that would be a good fit for you. And as always, we're on all the social channels under Mastermind Parenting. On Instagram, it's mastermind_parenting. And, periodically I do pop up on different Instagram lives, Facebook lives, where I give you teaching and coaching, and I love engaging with you live to help you help your strong-willed kids so that they can feel better, because when they feel better, they do better. And I love getting to know you guys. So thanks for listening. If you like this podcast, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Super, super appreciative.